Your speaker for today is Ms. Kathy Zant, and Kathy has been leading data-driven web projects for over 20 years for companies large and small. In the last decade, she has focused on PHP, MySQL, and the WordPress platform. Her primary interest at the moment is WordPress security. Kathy works for Wordfence, where she's done everything from clean hacked websites to operation management, sales, marketing, and everything in between. She is passionate about helping people and getting the most out of WordPress and the community. So please help me welcome Kathy Zant.
Thank you guys. Wow, this is exciting. Is everybody having a good WordCamp? Yeah? Woo! All right. Okay, before I start telling you all of hacker secrets, how many actual hackers do we have in the room? Raise your hand. All right. So we. Well, we don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but do you call yourself a hacker? Do you consider yourself a hacker? All right, well, I'll ask you at the end. I'll ask you at the end and see where we're at, okay? All right, well, Ida just gave me a wonderful introduction, but if you want it all written down, it's on the slides, which I'll tweet out when we're all done here. I've been working with WordPress for a very long time. Before that, I worked with all kinds of other technologies. Databases plus scripts are my game, and securing them is what I do now. I've done everything that you could possibly imagine at Wordfence. I love the company, I love my team. Some of them are here right now. If you are using Wordfence on your site, give them a round of applause because they are keeping you safe and having fun here at WordCamp. How did I get here? Well, anybody who's in security or has any idea about security gets here because they got hacked. The first time I got hacked was my first job working for an insurance company in a data center in suburban Chicago. And I inherited a server that someone else set up. Someone much smarter than me, right? You know, they went to school and have a degree in computer science and they set it up. And I went to go check log files one day and there was a text file in the root of the web directory and it said, "You've been hacked." I ran around with my hair on fire, found my bosses. Incident response began. It turned into quite a bit of an incident response. They then turned to a tiger team and attacked basically the entire network because of this one text file. Quite a few years later, after I was a freelance developer, I set up a WordPress site for my husband, and his site got hacked. It was the Tim Thumb vulnerability. If anybody's been working with WordPress for a long time, you've probably seen a hacked site with the Tim Thumb vulnerability. So I helped him clean that site. That was my first hacked WordPress site. Interestingly, on the other side of the continent, a guy named Mark Maunder also had his website hacked, and it was hacked because of the same vulnerability. Mark got busy. He got busy not only helping patch that Tim Thumb vulnerability. Tim Thumb is actually an image compression library, and it's included in a lot of different themes, so it's kind of a big deal. But if you go into these files and you see Mark Maunder at the top, it means you have a safe version of Tim Thumb. Not only did Mark patch that vulnerability, he got busy writing a program that we all know and love, Wordfence. And that's how it started. And now Wordfence is installed on over 3 million WordPress websites worldwide, kind of a big deal. So that's how we got started. So I'm going to talk a lot about the hacker mindset, but I'm going to pepper this with security tips that you can take home to start securing not only your WordPress site, but your life online. So tip number 1, has anybody ever inherited a website from someone else? Yeah. Tip number 1, never assume that that is secure. Assume that it's not. Do an audit on it. Take a look at how everything's been set up. If you've inherited a phone from someone, a computer from someone, never make the assumption that that was set up securely. Never assume anybody else knows what they're doing, because you can't blame someone else for a hacked website when it's sitting on your server, or a hacked server that you're responsible for, or a hacked computer that has all of your financial data on it. So you have to take responsibility for security. Now, cleaning hacked sites, I've talked to a few people here today and they're like, ew, that's so gross. It's a mess. And it was kind of like life. There was a picture of Forrest Gump, but he's copyrighted. So now the box of chocolates. Cleaning hacked sites kind of felt like being Forrest Gump, sitting with that box of chocolates and never knowing what you were going to get. You'd open up our ticketing system, there'd be a ticket of someone with a hacked site. You'd go take a look at what was there, and it could be anything. And no two really looked alike. You'd see some patterns, like you'd see the same vulnerabilities being attacked because of a specific campaign. But every day that I would open up a ticket and clean a hacked site, and open up another ticket and clean another hacked site, and sometimes clean 30 sites, because they were all in the same cPanel, and every single one was compromised, it was always a challenge. And it kind of reminded me a lot about life. Is there anyone in this room who is not challenged by something in your life right now, whether it's conflict with a spouse or a family member or someone that's sick or your dog dies and it sends you into 2 weeks of tears? Not that I've been there, but I'm lying, I've been there. We've all had challenges. Is there anyone here who doesn't have a challenge right now in their life? Anybody who's like living in a bowl of cherries? Anyone special? Because I'd like you to sprinkle that pixie dust on me if you've got it. We all have challenges, right? This is life. Even little kids. Parents in here, remember your little kid learning how to walk? Boom. How many times they fall down? And what do? Do they give up, or do they just keep getting back up and crashing again and falling down a stair or two? Hopefully not too bad. But they keep going at it, right? There's challenges in life. And it seems like when we were born and we came into this world, we seemed to have a mindset that was prepared for these kinds of challenges, that was prepared to deal with difficulties, that was prepared to think outside of the box, that was prepared to fall down and get back up again. But sometimes we lose that. Now, there's a man named Viktor Frankl who wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning. I had to read it in college. Anybody else read it? Yeah, it was assigned to a lot of us. This quote stuck with me since college. Between stimulus and response, there's a space. And in that space is our power to choose our response. And in our response lies our growth and freedom. Now, Viktor Frankl, he had a few challenges. Viktor Frankl was in the concentration camps. And yet, he looked at that particular challenge, which I'd say is probably worse than even my dog dying, and he responded to that differently. He saw that the stimuli of that challenge didn't have to lead to a negative response. He didn't have to give up. He could look at that challenge and he could rise above and beyond it. And I think that's what the hacker mindset is all about. It's about seeing challenges. It's about seeing your entire life in a different way. And it's about grasping that space between stimulus and response and choosing your freedom. All right, does that sound interesting to anyone? Yep. You want to be free? Then you got to learn how to think like a hacker. Because how you respond to your challenge is your experience. If you respond to a challenge or a difficulty and you go cry in your room for 2 weeks, how is that helping you? How is that helping you grow? If your little kid falls down a flight of stairs or falls down, when he's learning to walk and never gets back up again, where does that leave him? Life is pushing and pulling us to our greatness. It's pushing and pulling us in directions that, sometimes we might not want to go. But those challenges are pushing us towards really finding out who we are. It starts out when we're walking. It goes through school and teachers telling you that you're not smart enough, or that you have a learning disability, or that you have a problem and you're never going to surmount that problem. Can you hack beyond the challenge that stands before you? Because your greatness is not going to come in a vacuum. It's going to come because you decided to go into that space between stimulus and response and choose differently. And if you're working with WordPress, you have plenty of opportunity to deal with challenges. Anybody in here whose site is under attack right now? The smart ones are raising their hands because they know. Now that screenshot that's up there is from the Wordfence dashboard. We're on 3 million sites. We see some things. So those are the types of attacks that we're seeing. Because WordPress powers over a third of the internet, it's under attack. Hackers understand economies of scale, and they're going after the biggest fish in the pond. And if you're working with WordPress, you know why it's the biggest content management system out there. It's the most functional, it's the most easily extensible, it's where most of us are making our living. It's awesome, and hackers are looking for ways in. Thinking like a hacker and securing WordPress and securing the rest of your life is good for business. Now this study came from AT&T. They found that companies with proactive security policies actually are more successful in business. 24% sales growth over a 3-year period with 20% profit margins. Now companies without proactive security policies only experience 6% growth with 3% profit margins. Now obviously AT&T is trying to sell you security services, but they still did the research, and it's still valuable. And what are they finding out? They're finding out that people who think proactively about security, they have a mindset. And they're probably thinking proactively about other areas of their business as well. It's not limited to security. So security is a great place to start because you have an asset. It's your WordPress website. Securing that asset is going to help you start thinking like a hacker, and it's going to spill over into other areas of your mindset in dealing with your business as well. So let's get proactive about security. If you're using WordPress right now, you can go on wordfence.com, go to the site security audit, Google Wordfence site security audit. On there is a sample report. In the back of that report is a list of everything that our trained security analysts look at when they are analyzing your site security. Now you could hire one of our guys to do it, you'll get a premium license, but you can also do it yourself. You can do it right now. Well, obviously not right now, you're at WordCamp, but tomorrow when this is all done, you can go download that report and start proactively looking at the security of your site. And it'll spill over into other areas of your life as well. Now, even if you're not dealing with WordPress, you still have an opportunity to think about security, because if you don't have a WordPress site, I'm sorry to report that you are still under attack. We all are. We've all been hacked. I am willing to bet that everyone in this room has at least one email address in a breach. A man named Troy Hunt has a website called Have I Been Pwned? And he basically takes all of these breaches that end up in places like the dark web, the big scary dark web, and places like torrents and whatnot that hackers all share information on. And he takes all of this information and puts it into a database. So you can go put your email address in there and see if you've been in one of these breaches. If you've used LinkedIn, you've been in a breach. If you use Adobe or have used Adobe in the somewhat distant past, you've been in a breach. And if you have any credit cards whatsoever, there is a credit reporting agency that had a very high-scale breach that even if you didn't have a contract with them, your information ended out on the web for hackers to poke at. So we are all under attack. So security tip number 3, go on to Have I Been Pwned, put your email addresses, all of them in there, see where your information has been in dumps, and if your email address is in there, I'm sorry to say a password might be in there. But nobody in here reuses passwords, right? Has anybody ever reused a password? Do you remember the good old days when you could do that? Oh, yeah. I used my cats, my dog, use all my kids' names. Can't do it anymore. Those passwords are all in a breach and they're tied to your user information, and hackers are using them to poke at other services, including your WordPress site, to try to get in. So, security is good for business. The hacking mindset is something that could change your life. So let's take a look at who hackers really are. Are you a hacker yet? Getting there. Let's look at who hackers really are and take a look at the hacking mindset. So is a hacker this guy? You see this guy in the media all the time, right? This is the hacker, the big scary guy with the Guy Fawkes mask. Or maybe it's the scary guy in a dark room looking at his computer in a hoodie. He looks pretty scary. Or maybe it's the nonconformist teenage hacker girl. All right, so I'm involved in security marketing, and I hate to tell you that security stock photography, well, if you have a good sense of humor, go take a look at it. It is slightly ridiculous. So we have loads of fun with this. But the media tries to tell us that hackers are what? Bad guys, people to be scared of, someone who's trying to steal all of your information and your money. Hackers sound scary, but here's an alert. These guys, anybody know who that is? That's it, Steve Wozniak, Steve Jobs, Apple Computer, way back in the day. Actual hackers. It took some creativity to create the first personal computer. It took thinking outside of the box. It took thinking beyond what was acceptable. And these guys were actual hackers. Phone phreaking, back in the late 70s, early 80s, you could play a 2600 hertz tone into a phone and an analog phone, and you could actually get free long distance, which if you're old like me, was a big deal. I wish I knew about it, but I didn't. The funny thing is, as I was researching phone phreaking, this Captain Crunch whistle made a perfect 2600 hertz tone. You could use a Captain Crunch whistle to get free long distance. All right. Now, who's an actual hacker? Kids? Has anybody ever been to San Jose, to the Kids Museum there? It's on Wozway, the Kids Museum. Steve Wozniak, Wozway. They're just a bunch of kids having fun. Remember our kids learning how to walk? Standing up after they fell? Not giving up? We're starting to learn about the hacker mindset, aren't we? What did we lose? Hackers, like our kids, don't see different things. They see things differently. And so what I'm inspiring you to do is to look at everything in your life just a little bit differently. So normal people would see a locked door. What does a hacker see? I could pick that lock. Normal people see the way things have always been. Get stuck in our ways, don't we? Hackers see a new way of doing things better, like personal computers. Normal people see the rules and the regulations and the way it's supposed to be done because that's what the government tells you to do. Hackers see rules as things to transcend, to be bent, rules to be broken. We see vulnerabilities. Hackers see opportunity. Hackers see systems as collections of rules. This used to have the spoon kid from The Matrix, but now we just have a bent spoon. Copyright. But do you remember The Matrix? Everybody saw that movie, right? Neo? What did Neo do at the beginning? What was his job? He was a programmer, and he was a hacker. He had the mindset ready to look at the matrix in a different way. All right, I might be a little bit cliche by saying that this whole world is a system that could be hackable, but you have to look at everything in your life, not just your computer, not just your phone, not just your relationships, your mind. It's all hackable. It's all changeable. That's how we were born. We were born to look at things and feel things that we couldn't do and to think beyond that. Otherwise, would we run? We would have given up long ago. Innovation comes from seeing the challenges in your life. Those things that we talked about earlier where I asked if everybody's got a little bit of something they're trying to work out. Those challenges are things that you can look at differently, and you can look at them differently today. You can start asking questions. What if? What if this happens? What if that happens? So let's dive a little deeper into the how and why of thinking like a hacker. Does anybody remember the Target breach that happened in 2013? That was a story, huh? Oh my gosh. So what happened? It was around Christmas time, Thanksgiving, and HVAC vendor had VPN, virtual private network, access into Target's network. That computer got hacked. Heating and air conditioning computer got hacked. 19 days. After they did the post-mortem on what had happened, they found that those hackers were in that system for 19 days. Was it a guy in a hoodie? Could have been. Maybe it was a group of guys from the Ukraine. Who knows who it was, but they had patience. Now, if they had gone in there and said, oh, look at Target's HVAC system. I wonder if we can turn the air conditioning on in Minnesota. Great, that's fun. But they looked at that system and they said, I wonder where we can go. Where can the rules be bent? Where can the rules be broken? They ended up 1,800 point of sale cash registers across the United States. Bing, the mother lode. Patience. So, security tip number 4. It's a scary story. Functionally isolate your website. Anybody use cPanel? Anybody got more than one WordPress installation in your cPanel? All right, so I cleaned a hack site. It was a Brazilian agency. This agency had 30 sites in a cPanel. One of their customers had a password that was in a data dump in a breach. Hacker got in, went to the 404 page theme editor and pasted that 404 page as a PHP backdoor. That gave them access to 30 WordPress websites. They appended a JavaScript redirect into every single JavaScript file in that cPanel. That agency's customers, every single one of them was redirecting site traffic to a bad place on the internet. So, one site, one cPanel. That's our recommendation. If you're going to put more than one site in a cPanel, watch each of them carefully. Remove everything you're not using. Plugins you're not using, don't just deactivate them, get them out of there. Themes you're not using, same thing. And if you have a test site, because you just want to test and see if a theme is going to work a certain way or a plugin's not going to cause a problem, and then you forget about that test site, still an entryway into your production site, so delete that or take care of it. Hackers are persistent. Now that's just an image that, I'm sure it's been on Facebook, it's been in your feed, it's been shared 40,000 times, I think. Patience and persistence are 2 key traits of a hacker. Do you give up before you get to the mother lode? Those Target hackers didn't. What about the challenges in your life? Are you going to give up before you get to where you want to be? Patience and persistence. If you need practice, head down to the Wordfence table, pick a lock. It takes patience, it takes persistence, and then all of a sudden, you're thinking like a hacker. Visualize the solution, don't try to force it. Often helps. More security tips. So treat the problems of your life and security like games or puzzles. Oftentimes we get like emotionally attached to an outcome, or we get emotionally affected by the negativity that might be the shade that's being thrown at us by an adversary. It's all just a game. If you can stay in the hacker mindset, you're going to treat it like a game, and you're going to be more able to be flexible, to recapture that childlike exuberance that we once had in order to see solutions where other people just see problems. So look for those opportunities, because those challenges really are your stepping stone to your greatness. And if you watch your site security, it's a great practice for looking at problems in other areas of life. So go pick a lock, and backups is in there because backups, everybody's backing up, right? All right. So scaling the attack. Is it a guy in a hoodie trying to get into sallyscatblog.com, or is it just a bot? It's a bot. 99.99% of the bad traffic we see comes from a handful of IP addresses just trying to get into WordPress, and these are bots that are programmed. Maybe the guy's wearing a hoodie, I don't know, but it's bots. They are looking for vulnerabilities or opportunities. So you can do that too in all areas of your life. And in security, you can leverage technology to make security more effective. There are firewalls, intrusion prevention, intrusion detection, malware scanning, password managers. There's all kinds of technology to help you stay secure so that you can free your mind up to think like a hacker. So look below the surface. When you're seeing a problem, you're seeing just the top of the iceberg. The solution is always a little bit deeper. It takes some curiosity. It takes asking, what if? How does this work? What's really going on here? Everything in your life is hackable. Now, no security talk would be complete without talking a little bit about ethics, right? I mean, that's what really the whole negative connotation of a hacker is all about. It's all about ethics. So are you going to put ethics first? Are you going to put money first? Because all these hackers, what they're trying to do, when they're trying to get into WordPress, they're trying to put scripts on there to direct to advertising networks or malware that's going to crypto mine, make them more money. They're trying to exploit the server resources that you're paying for in order for their profit motive. But hacking, what's it all about? What's the intent behind your hacking? Are you trying to hack the world to be a better place? Or are you trying to hack the world for your own profit and gain, like Dr. Evil? So, I believe that there is such a thing as white hat hacking, and I see it all the time. So, recently, a guy found a way to get past Instagram's two-factor authentication. So, two-factor authentication is 6-digit code, 1 million permeations. He basically leveraged cloud servers to rotate through IP addresses and basically brute forced past the two-factor authentication. That's pretty cool. He went to Facebook, Instagram, and showed them his proof of concept of how he got in. They gave him $30,000. Pretty sweet, huh? Hacking, ethical hacking can pay. You don't have to turn to the dark side, Luke. You can be a white hat hacker, and there's money in it. In the WordPress world, there's plenty of ethical hacking going on. And I'm going to shout out to one of my coworkers, a man by the name of Matt Berry. He's an incredible guy. I don't think that there's anyone on our team who doesn't look at Matt with the utmost in respect, not only technically, but just as a rock-solid human being. Matt Berry is incredible. If you're here, Matt, I'm sorry. I hope I'm not making you embarrassed, but we all really respect you. So Matt was doing an audit of plugins that we use on Wordfence.com, because we use WordPress too, of course. And he found a stored cross-site scripting vulnerability in a plugin known as Syntax Highlighter Evolved. He looked to find a person to responsibly disclose this to get it fixed. And he found that Automatic is the maintainer of that plugin. The developer was a man by the name of Alex Mills. Many of us in the WordPress community knew Alex because he was such a prolific coder. He worked for Automatic. Many of my friends got into coding PHP and coding for WordPress because of Alex. So Matt got a $350 bug bounty for disclosing this responsibly. The patch has been put out by Automatic. He took that $350, his profit, and he donated that in memory of Alex to the hospital that treated him. There are ethical hackers. Matt Berry is one, and I am proud to work with him. He is ethical hacking really at its finest, and he's in the WordPress community. And that's one of the things that's really special about WordPress. I mean, we're all here at a WordCamp, right? And it's kind of a special place. It's our tribe. There's a lot of very special people here. And the hackers that exist in this room and the hackers that are out there picking locks are all some really fine people. So security tip number 6, two-factor authentication. We're using it, right? Anybody not using two-factor authentication? Anyone confused what two-factor is? I'll just go over it really quickly. So you have a username, you've got a password. They're probably in a breach somewhere. That two-factor authentication code, your Google Authenticator app on your phone or Authy app on your phone, or 1Password, which has it built into their system. Great tools, because even if they get your username and password, they're not going to get that code unless they steal your device. It's going to add an extra layer of security. And if you really want to stay secure, call your bank. Because, oh my gosh, the banking system, where we keep our money, what the heck? SMS still? Come on, you guys, get with the program. So many of our financial institutions are behind the ball with this and still using SMS-based two-factor authentication. It's kind of a sad state because there are things such as SIM porting attacks where someone can go to a Verizon store, for example, and say, my name's Kathy Zant and my mom died and my phone's not working and I don't know, oh my gosh, and put that person under pressure. And no, I don't have my ID because my mom just died and whatever. And get a SIM card put into a new phone, boom, they've got the SMS codes. Use the authenticator apps wherever you can because SMS will go by the wayside. So that's about it, but I will have a question. I asked before if there were any hackers in this room when I started, and I want to know if anybody's changed their mind. Any hackers in this room? Few more hands? Oh, come on, you guys. This is like my thing. You're going to hack your way out of problems now, right? You're going to look at things with fresh eyes. You're going to say, what if? And find solutions to your problems so that you can experience your greatness. And if you have any questions, I'm open for them. Follow me on all these places. Watch my podcast with my boss, Mark, at Think Like a Hacker, wordfence.com/podcast. And that's it. We have a few minutes for questions if anyone's got them. Happy to talk about anything. Yes, my dog really did die. I have a new dog now, though. Any questions? Yes?
I don't know if I need a mic for this. When you do get hacked, what's the first thing you do?
First thing you do, make a backup of everything. Make a backup of your log files. Make a backup of your entire site. Store that backup elsewhere. Get it off your server because the hacker might still be on your server. Then I would run a Wordfence scan. Install Wordfence if your site is still functional. Make sure you're backing up your database as well because sometimes they get in there. And I mean, sometimes we get site cleaning requests come in and the site might just have something wrong with it, but it's so broken they can't figure out what's going on. But the first thing to do is to make a backup. If you have a cPanel, you can make a backup that way. If you can install a plugin to make a backup that way, you can Jetpack, you can back up that. There's tons of ways of making that backup. Your hosting provider may help you. That way you're preserving the evidence of what's happened, and then you can start trying to clean it. If you go on Wordfence or just do a search for how to clean a hacked site with Wordfence, and there's a a whole tutorial on how to do that, or just how to clean a hacked site. Another thing that I would really recommend is going on, just do a search for harden WordPress. And there is a page on wordpress.org that will give you a number of steps where you can more tightly secure WordPress. Like, for example, like the Brazilian agency cPanel nightmare that I cleaned up, 30 sites. Had they turned off theme editing, which is something that you can do in your WP config file, then they would have never gotten to that 404 page to paste in that backdoor with the theme editor. So, and how often are you editing your themes with that? You know, so you can just turn it off if your site's live production, doesn't need to be messed with. It's just another way to harden WordPress. So Google harden WordPress. Tons of tips there. Yes?
What's the most common attack vector that you see? Is it XSS, SQLI, brute force, what?
We did some research quite a few years ago, and it was cross-site scripting attacks. Yeah. So, and it's when we see attacks happening, they're going after plugins for the most part. So keep your plugins updated. Don't install anything and just leave it there. If you're not using it, delete it. That kind of good plugin hygiene will help keep you safe. But yeah, cross-site scripting. The Wordfence, not that I'm telling from the stage, but the Wordfence free version that you can get out of the repository, our cross-site scripting protection is pretty stellar.
Awesome. One last question is,
yes.
You mentioned one site per cPanel.
Yes.
So how does that apply with multi-site?
Multi-site.
Avoid multi-site.
Well, multi-site. Okay, so we've seen intrusions with multi-site. Same type of situation where you have one site with an admin, and depending on how you have things installed, I mean, we saw one intrusion happen where it was a reused password, and the dump that ended up in the database was domain name, you know, userguy@domainname.com was the email address with a reused password, got into the system, was not a super admin, but they had PHP exec installed, not live, but the hacker made it live. Pwned. So. Yeah, any other questions? I'm happy to answer anything.
I'm curious, what's your opinion on 1Password for multi-factor authentication versus using something separate like Duo or Authy? Because 1Password, it's very convenient, but it also feels like my password and the two-factor authentication code are the same.
Is right there, yeah. Eggs all in one basket, right? That's typically, okay, so I use multiple password management tools, and I use multiple authenticator tools, and I'm all over the place. And I think even if, you know, I died, I don't think my husband could get into all my stuff because I'm all over the place. So obfuscation obviously is a strategy, but also, you know, when I first had that hack happen, when I worked at that insurance company way back in the day, they sent me to security school. And I learned one very important principle of security. The most secure system is buried in concrete 6 feet under. The most usable system is completely open and is going to get hacked. Somewhere in the between all of that is the happy medium, and that happy medium is going to be different for each person, right? I mean, every time I use two-factor authentication, I curse it. I don't like it, but I use it because I've seen some things, right? And I mean, my passwords are like ridiculous. So it's a personal decision. And I mean, if you're on a team and you have a two-factor authentication, 1Password is like really the only way to go. And you're using a shared system because that's what that service requires you to do. It works. Other questions?
Yes, got one right here.
Okay, yes.
Earlier in your presentation, you mentioned intent behind the intrusion.
Yeah.
And when you first came onto your team, you realized that your pre-built server had been hacked.
Yeah.
You left you a convenient text file to say that you were hacked.
Yeah.
Most of the time, to my understanding, they don't want to be detected.
Right.
So with that, what do you think the intent was, or why would somebody leave?
Somebody sprinkled pixie dust on me that day, seriously, because that was I lucked out. You know, I mean, sure, I'm going to blame the person who set the server up because I didn't do it. I assumed. I made an assumption. I was a younger kid, right? You know, I mean, it was my first like real hardcore. I'm working in a server basement job, but still, take responsibility. I learned the hard way to take responsibility. White hat hacking happens, you know, and that was a white hat hacker. I mean, what they basically accessed was a bunch of HTML files. There wasn't even WordPress back then because I'm old. So there was nothing for them to really get at, but I thank that person because they sent me down a track of learning a lot. And other than that Tim Thumb thing, there's no wood to knock on. Oh my God, I haven't been hacked. So. Any other questions?
Yeah, I got one.
Okay.
So, with static websites, you know,
Yeah.
back in the day, you'd have one CSS file. Now, with modern day WordPress websites, you might have 15 CSS files, a bunch of inline CSS, a bunch of CSS in the head. There's a lot going on, and
Yeah.
it makes it really difficult for content security policy, which is I'm starting to hear a lot more about. So I was just wondering, do you have any opinions on, you know, how valid content security policy is and good ways to implement that in WordPress?
Content security policy. Well, I mean, it's going to be different for each organization, right? And you're going to have to take a lot of things into consideration. What's in your WordPress? Are you I mean, I've heard some stories and I've seen some things of what people put in their WordPress, and oh my gosh, if it's personally identifiable information, don't put it in your WordPress. WordPress is not the place to store that kind of information. But you're going to have user information. Maybe you're using WooCommerce and you've got, you know, your customers' information in your database. So each situation is going to be, each site is going to be so different, and you're going to have to look at that differently. With the static sites, and there seems to be, you know, sort of this move towards headless WordPress and static sites sitting in front of WordPress, talking to WordPress behind the scenes and things like that. I'm watching all of that with interest because I think it's going to be fascinating to see what happens. I don't think it's the right solution for everyone, especially right now. But it's going to be interesting. I'm curious because, you know what, when I first started coding, there was no SQL injection. It wasn't a thing. I remember when SQL injection, that's how old I am. I saw SQL injection come on the scene and had to go like sanitize all my inputs, and then, yeah, I'm old. My friends and my coworkers are laughing at me right now. But yeah, SQL injection wasn't always a thing. And there's security things that are going to happen 5, 6, 7, 8 years from now that we're gonna laugh at that we aren't doing now. So each site's gonna be different. You have to stay on top of security. We love to do that for the WordPress community. We've got your back. Subscribe to our newsletter. If we know that something's happening, we're going to let you know, and we're going to have your back. I have 4 seconds, so I think I'm done. If you have more questions, I'll be at the Wordfence booth, and I'm happy to answer anything there. So go think like a hacker. Have fun. Thank you.